Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I'm going to talk about the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense and how whenever it's approached about UFOs, they always lie. The Ministry of Defense always lies about UFOs and the phenomenon, the extraterrestrial / non-human intelligence presence. They always lie. They've been doing this for decades now. They're professionals at it. Professional, I tell you. And I'm going to present proof to this as we go through this discussion today. But it actually it starts with an article that I just read earlier today from Christopher Sharp of Liberation Times, where he had contacted the Ministry of Defense and he received a very interesting comment about UAP. Of course, the United States, the Pentagon, they've been lying too for all these years. But we need to call out the other countries too that are always lying too, like the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense. They're telling lies to the citizenry about UFOs and the alien presence. They've been doing it for decades. They're pros at it at this point. Professionals. Anyway, I want to get into this. It starts with an article. We'll start with this article from Christopher Sharp. He has the headline here: Pentagon confirms ongoing collaboration with Five Eyes allies on UAP investigations. It says here, the United States Department of Defense has confirmed to Liberation Times that the United States and its allies within Five Eyes continue to discuss areas of mutual interest and concern related to UAP. This follows the inaugural Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, or UAP, meeting held in May 2023 by United States government's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Representatives from each of the Five Eyes allies, Canada, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and Australia, were in attendance. The Five Eyes is an intelligence alliance comprising these 5 countries focused on cooperation in signals intelligence. This collaboration enhances the member of countries' ability to share information and conduct joint operations. Yes, see, this is I believe that the Five Eyes works as a good communication funnel between all of these 5 countries when it comes to the UFO phenomenon. They work together on this. I'm sure that there are some discussions between these 5 countries, among some other allied countries, where it's a known fact among certain groups within these countries that UFOs. They don't know what they are. They know that they're coming from some probably other planets. That's what they probably have reached that kind of conclusions. But they never will admit that. They talk about it privately. And I think all of these countries, including the United Kingdom, they basically take their cues from the Pentagon when it comes to this subject. But anyway, here's what the Department of Defense spokesperson Susan Gold told the Liberation Times just recently. She says, Arrow held its first Five Eye working group in May 2023 and continues to discuss areas of mutual interest and concern related to UAP with its Five Eyes partners. Arrow is committed to working with allies and partners in an open sharing environment to identify and resolve UAP sightings. Well, of course, as we all know, Arrow at this point is just an extension of the Pentagon's disinformation apparatus when it comes to UAP. That's what it is. It's been completely useless. I mean, we had Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. He just, got caught in some lies. Like he knows all about UFOs, but even though he's telling everybody else he knows nothing about it and that they have no evidence of it, but apparently he knows all about them because that's what he told Brandon Fugel and Brandon Fugel's team. Brandon Fugel, by the way, who owns Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, told him back in a meeting in 2018. Of course, Kirkpatrick lied about this later, and then we were able to determine through a picture that Fugel provided, as well as some comments from Fugel, that Kirkpatrick has been lying about UFOs in public. That's what he's been doing. They know all about it, as does other countries. There's most certainly a segment within the United Kingdom, for instance, that is studying this, working with its allies like the United States to keep this bottled up and to study it privately for their own purpose, reverse engineer it all, whatever. But they've been lying for decades, and we're going to go into the reasons why as we go through this. But anyway, it says here, recently, researcher Grant Lavick published official documentation detailing the inaugural May 2023 meeting through the Freedom of Information Act. During this session, Arrow presented its updates, followed by briefings from the United States Federal Aviation Administration, NASA, the National Air Intelligence Integration Office, and NIM Aviation, and the National Maritime Intelligence Integration Office, or NIM Maritime. Now, NIM Aviation focuses on integrating and analyzing United States aviation intelligence intelligence to enhance national security, while NIM Maritime handles similar responsibilities concerning maritime intelligence. Of note, Five Eyes partners provided their own updates on UAP, even though some nations, such as the United Kingdom, have claimed they have no particular interest in UAP. So the United States is interested in UAP, but the United Kingdom, we don't have any interest in it. Even though the United States just basically confirmed that, yeah, we had them in a meeting last year as part of that Five Eyes Alliance, and we were talking about UAP. But according to the Ministry of Defense, oh, no, we're not interested in it. Anyway, continuing here, it says here, this indicates a broader commitment to sharing intelligence and collaborating on UAP investigations among the allied nations, despite their respective official public communications on the topic. Liberation Times contacted UK's Ministry of Defence to inquire whether its dismissive stance on UAP remains unchanged, despite official documentation obtained by LAVIC confirming that the UK was scheduled to provide its own UAP update. In response, the UK Ministry of Defence raised the prospect of UAP representing extraterrestrial intelligence, stating that such phenomena do not indicate any military threat and that the Ministry of Defence prioritizes resources for other defence activities. And here was a direct comment from the MOD. They state, in over 50 years, no sightings of extraterrestrial intelligence, unidentified flying objects, and unidentified aerial phenomena reported to us indicated the existence of any military threat to the United Kingdom. It remains more valuable to prioritize Ministry of Defense resources toward other defense-related activities. Of interest, and then later Christopher writes, of interest, the Ministry of Defense modified its usual response to the Liberation Times, which previously indicated that it had no opinion of extraterrestrial life. Its adapted response simply states that no sightings of extraterrestrial intelligence indicated any military threat, but it does not deny the existence of such intelligence reported to or encountered by the Ministry of Defense. While this is not an explicit admission, it is noteworthy as it suggests the Ministry of Defense may have encountered non-human intelligence. Okay, and there's more to this article, but I'll leave the link so you can check it out for yourselves, but I just wanted to get this started here. So basically, they're not interested in it. They're saying it remains more valuable for the Ministry of Defense resources to keep their resources toward other defense-related activities, and nothing over 50 years, right? Nothing. They're stating that nothing reported to the Ministry of Defense has indicated the existence of any military threat to the United Kingdom. Now, I don't believe that, and I'm going to show you why. I cannot believe that. I can't believe it, and I'll tell you why. Because there's numerous, for one thing, all right, there's tens of thousands, over the 50 plus years now in the United Kingdom, throughout the United Kingdom, in all different parts of the United Kingdom. There's tens of thousands of different reports from regular citizens, sometimes police officers, sometimes military, whatever. But there's tens of thousands. Think about Rendlesham, 1980, right? There was something going on there for sure. Now, you're going to tell me that this doesn't pose, you don't think in the back of your mind that poses no, you think in the back of your mind that poses no military threat potentially? You're not going to investigate this, and make sure it poses no military threat? But there's so many different things that have happened over the years. In fact, I'm going to talk about some of them right now. For instance, there was something that happened back in 1979. And here's an article from the BBC. It says here, in the headline reads, "The UFO sighting investigated by the police." Now, I've talked about this before on a previous show. I think it was during a live show. I talked about this article, actually this article in particular. And this was about a forestry worker named Robert Taylor who had an experience in the Denchmont Woods. And this is in Scotland, right? And so this guy, he comes upon some kind of a landed saucer-shaped object, and next thing he knows, there's these two little balls with spikes on them that come rolling toward them and get on him, roll over him somehow. He gets knocked out, and then 20 minutes later, he wakes up, and the saucer and those spiked balls are gone. These apparent remote-controlled spike balls, whatever they were, they're gone. Now, you're going to tell me that wouldn't cause some concern within the Ministry of Defense, that there's possible something landing in the United Kingdom that has the ability to do something like that? What if there's tens of thousands of devices that have the ability to do something like that could attack citizens and knock them out out and conked them out and hurt them. Well, I mean, wouldn't you would think that the Ministry of Defense would be concerned about something like that. In fact, I guarantee that they had to be concerned about this. Anyway, let's go through this article here a little bit. It says here, when forestry worker Robert Taylor reported seeing an alien spaceship in woods near Livingston 40 years ago, it made headlines around the world. The Detchmont Woods incident is unusual among reported UFO sightings in that it was investigated by the police. They treated the rips to Mr. Taylor's trousers as evidence of an assault, but could never quite work out what had happened to him. Let me just stop there. I could work it out. We're going to work out what happened to him later, to Mr. Taylor. I think we could work it out. I think what he stated exactly is what happened to him. In his testimony to the police, a 61-year-old described how he saw a 30-foot-high dome-shaped object in a clearing in the forest near the West Lothian New Town on 9 November 1979. He told how two spiked spheres then rolled out toward him. As he passed out, he was aware of being grabbed on either side of his legs. Mr. Taylor woke up in a disheveled state 20 minutes later. He died in 2007, and he was a respected war hero and a teetotaler, and went to church all the time, by the way. No one doubted that he was sincere in what he believed he had seen, and throughout the rest of his life, he never deviated from his story. He told the police he had been working alone, checking fences and gates at Detchmont Woods at 10:30 when he came across a spaceship in a clearing. After the spiked objects rushed out and tried to grab hold of him, all he could remember was a strong smell of burning. When he came to, the clearing was empty apart from a pattern of deep, regular marks on the ground. He went to his van, but was so shaken he drove into a ditch and had to stagger home in a dazed condition. When he got home, he told his wife Mary he had been attacked by a spaceship thing. Because Mr. Taylor was in such a state that police were called and officers found themselves inquiring into an assault on a forester by alien beings. Detective Con Ian Wark, the scene of this crime investigator, arrived at the clearing to find a large gathering of police officers were already there. He told the BBC he saw strange marks on the ground. There were about 32 holes, which were about 3.5 inches in diameter, as well as marks similar to those by the type of caterpillar tracks often fitted on bulldozers. The officer went to Mr. Taylor's employer to see if the machinery, which is Livingston Development Corporation, to see if any of the machinery they had could solve the mystery. After examining every piece of machinery they had up there, we did not find anything to match, he said. The police officer said that the unusual marks on the ground were only to be found in the clearing where Mr. Taylor had experienced his reported close encounters. So let me just stop there for a second. This guy, doesn't drink, goes to church all the time, and then has this experience and tell exactly what he told everyone else, his wife, the police, everybody. That's exactly what happened to him. There was some kind of a saucer that was landed there. The marks were in the ground to prove it. All the marks from these rolling balls were there to prove that too. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of debunkers out there of course, there have been. They don't believe it, right? But obviously, it happened. I mean, if you're going through life, some of these people are going through life with blinders on their eyes. I think a lot of us are. A lot of people are just not accepting when incidents like this happen. A lot of us aren't accepting what happens as the truth. This guy was telling the truth. There's no question about it. But the other thing I want to point out is that the Ministry of Defense had to be aware of this story back in 1979. That's within 50 years by my calendar, and that means that they have to be. This would have had to been something to be concerned about if this guy was telling the truth, and this object, whatever it was, had these rolling, potentially remote-controlled steel spiked balls rolling toward him, knocked him out somehow, and then he wakes up 20 minutes later and everything's gone, the whole kit and caboodle. It happened. It was real. There was evidence that was left behind the show that told help fill in the blanks. And here's another thing that Detective Con Wark said. He said, these marks just arrived. They did not come from anywhere or go anywhere. They just arrived as though a helicopter or something had landed from the sky. Now, if you're in the Ministry of Defense, this would have to definitely be of concern for you. Could you imagine? Let's just think. If you're the Ministry of Defense in the United Kingdom and you hear this story, right? And there's evidence that the police are telling you that there's evidence that backs everything up that this guy just told you, right? Are you going to pretend? That guy's just a? Are you going to? If you're the Ministry of Defense, you're going to say that guy's a crackpot. There's nothing to be concerned about here. Let's worry about other things. No, you're not. You're going to know. You're going to understand. Oh wow, it looks like these. Beings that are coming here that we're aware of that we're not telling the public about. Look what else they got. See, that they have to know about this. They have to. Anyway, continuing here, it says the police report from the time said the marks on the ground indicated an object of several tons had stood there, but there was nothing to show that it had been driven or towed away. Yes, there was no marks to show that it was driven or towed away. That's because by the time they got back there, right, the thing was gone. It obviously had flew away. When the guy woke up, it was gone. It flew away along with those 2 spiked balls. PC William Douglas wrote, there appeared to be no rational explanation for these marks. Well, it might seem irrational to some people out there, but it is rational. It's very rational. There was some sort of an object there operated by non-human intelligence, and they had balls, spiked balls that operated apparently by remote control. That's the rational explanation. There's nothing irrational about it, because as we all know, there's millions of people have experienced these things over the decades. The Ministry of Defense is completely aware of this. Obviously, I know Nick Pope was out there saying that he was never aware of it. Well, obviously, they didn't tell him then. They didn't tell him everything. They kept him out of the loop, apparently. And I don't care what he says. I love Nick Pope. I love listening to him. He's a funny guy and everything. But you know what? Sorry, Nick. They kept you out of the loop, because otherwise, you would have had a lot more to share over the years than what you have shared to this point. Just saying. Continuing here, it says, as part of the police investigation, Mr. Taylor's ripped trousers were sent for forensic examination, but this was many years before modern DNA techniques, so analysis concentrated on how the damage had been done. Police forensics said the trousers seemed to have been damaged by something hooking them and moving up. And the trousers are now in the possession of a ufologist named Malcolm Robinson, and he's been investigating cases like the Denchmont incident for years. He said that they were police-issue blue serge trousers, and the type of rips in them did not happen by getting snagged as Mr. Taylor crawled away on the ground. He also said he is one of the very few hardcore cases that defied any explanation. Well, like I said, there is an explanation. It's non-human intelligence extraterrestrials. There are many theories about what actually happened to Mr. Taylor. These include everything from hallucinatory berries to black ball lightning and a mirage of the planet Venus. That's absolutely absurd. I don't know who comes up with these theories sometimes, but that's more absurd than what Mr. Taylor said. What happened was there was a saucer-shaped craft on the ground. The marks in the ground were there to prove it, right? And there were balls with spikes in them that rolled toward them. Those marks were in the ground too to help prove it. Had nothing to do with the planet Venus. Had nothing to do with black ball lightning, and it had nothing to do with hallucinatory berries. A medical explanation could lie in an epileptic seizure being suffered by Mr. Taylor, but there's no evidence of this gathered at the time. Yeah, he was no epileptic seizure. Wait, that's just as absurd as the hallucinatory berries. And in her police statement, his wife Mary said Mr. Taylor had no history of mental illness and had contracted meningitis 14 years earlier. That had nothing to do with it. The meningitis from 14 years earlier had nothing to do with this case. Nothing. She said the treatment was successful, although in July of that year he had suffered a series of headaches and was admitted to the City of Hospital in Edinburgh. Those headaches, folks, had nothing to do with this incident. He told the truth about what happened, and the evidence was there to back it up. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to skip forward. But the one Detective Con Mark later on says he could go along with the theory about the epileptic fit. But what about the marks on the ground? Yes, exactly. What about the marks on the ground? That doesn't make any sense. Was he taking a fit when he was having his epileptic fit? Was he pounding in stakes all over the ground at the same time? That doesn't make any sense. It's obviously that's not what happened. Obviously. But he couldn't believe himself. He couldn't bring himself to say he believed him. He says, this is what he said in this article, I'd have to see it myself to believe it. But then later he says, I believed what he saw was, I believed what he saw. He believed what he saw, and there was no way he could make that up. Okay, so if you have to see it to believe it, but you do believe that you believe him, that he believes it, right? And there's no way he could make it up. Okay, there you go. There we are. I've talked about this story before. It's just funny to me. But you're going to tell me that the Ministry of Defense in the United Kingdom was not interested in this, not concerned about this potentiality? I mean, let's just say 1 million of these things showed up one day, right? 1 million of these saucers toting two of these spiked balls, remote controlled balls, and they just start rolling over the populace. Do you think the ministry they're not going to be concerned about that? I mean, it wouldn't shouldn't you be concerned about that though? I mean, isn't that similar to like say the Russians start parachuting into Scotland at some point, like Red Dawn or something? I mean, you'd be concerned about that, right? I mean, say armed Russians started parachuting into the United Kingdom armed. Well, that would be a concern, I would think. Isn't this the same thing? If you're the Ministry of Defense, wouldn't this be a cause for concern? I think it would be. That's why they're lying. When they say they're not interested in UFOs or UAP, they're lying. Obviously, they're lying. And it goes, and the same thing with another story, the Todd Morton UFO mystery, which involved Alan Godfrey, the police officer. And I'm going to go through a little bit of this story. Now, you're going to tell me, and this is from 1980. This happened in 1980. A series of events happened, actually. And here's an article from history.com from the United Kingdom. And it says here, on the 6th of June, 1980, 56-year-old coal miner Zygmunt Adamski left his home in Tingley, West Yorkshire to do some shopping. He never returned. On the 9th of June, his body was found on top of a 10-foot-high pile of coal in the town of Todmorden, 20 miles away from his house. This one, by the way, folks, this still has never been solved. Nobody knows how this guy ended up 20 miles away from his house on top of a coal pile, dead. Sent to investigate, local Bobby Alan Godfrey discovered that while Adamski was wearing a suit, his shirt, wallet, and watch were all missing. Adamski's hair had been cropped in what Godfrey described as a roughly cut manner, and he only had 1 day's growth of beard despite being missing for several days. The young policeman also reported that Adamski had mysterious burns on his neck, head, and shoulders. The coroner, James Turnbull, confirmed that some of the burns had been treated with a strange ointment that could not be identified by forensic scientists. Godfrey later said that Adamski looked like he'd been frightened to death. Speaking to reporters, Godfrey said there was a possibility Adamski had been abducted by aliens. I am open-minded, he said. I can't rule it out. Yeah, and he was about to find out some months later that, there is something like this. There could have been aliens. There's cases like this. There's been cases that people don't want to talk about involving potential human mutilation cases. Disappearances. People disappear all the time. Are they sometimes aliens just taking people and doing with what they want with them and then killing them and then we never see them again? That could be the reason behind a lot of the tens of thousands of disappearances across the globe every year, right? Some people say that. I would have to agree. I would have to think that sometimes some of these disappearances are related to this presence here. The true cause of the Lofthouse colliery worker's death remains a mystery to this day. One wild theory that did the rounds at the time was that Adamski had been killed by the KGB. Another suggested he had been struck by ball lightning. Here we go with the ball lightning again. Oh, yeah, you know what? It could have been ball lightning. Ball lightning is responsible. Put him on top of that coal pile, too, then. It picked up after it killed him, and then it picked him up and dropped him on top of a coal pile. Or he walked up to the top of the coal pile because he was in a daze for some reason, and then the ball lightning struck him, which caused him to wander off. Well, they're saying here the ball lightning caused him off to wander off, confused, and eventually died at the top of a coal heap. Yeah, he got hit by the ball lightning and then climbed to the top of a coal heap and then died. Yeah, okay. To many people, though, there was only one explanation. Adamski encountered alien beings on his way to the shops, and it had cost him his life. Now, we don't know. I think it's a possibility, though. There's nothing wrong with thinking that that's one of the things that could be responsible for Adamski's death. It could be. We just don't know for sure, but it could be. 5 months after the discovery of Adamski's body, Todd Morton once again found itself in the center of media attention. This time it was none other than Godfrey, who was in the eye of the storm. Sent out at 5 a.m. to deal with a call about escaped cattle on a housing estate, Godfrey was, according to his own account, stopped dead in his tracks by what he claimed was an unidentified flying object. Godfrey said that the object was a bright light in the sky, a rotating diamond-shaped vessel 20 feet high and 14 feet wide. Godfrey made a quick sketch of the object in his notebook and then grabbed his police radio to call the incident in. The line was dead. Suddenly, it disappeared in a bright flash, and Godfrey found himself sitting in his car 30 yards further down the road. Looking at his watch, the policeman was surprised to see it was 25 minutes later than it had been just moments before. Weirder still, his boot was split open and an itchy mark had appeared on one of his feet. Baffled, Godfrey returned to where he had seen the light and discovered the road where his car had been was completely dry, despite the fact that it was recently raining. Getting out to investigate the area, he found the cows he'd been looking for in a park next to the road. They had not been there before he saw the strange object in the sky. What was going on? When he finally managed to report his strange encounter, Godfrey was met with skepticism and even ridicule. Of course he was met with ridicule. You know why he was met with ridicule? Because government officials back in the 40s and 50s never came clean about the reality of the situation, and they decided from that point on to keep it a secret. And then by 1980, they were still keeping it a secret, and that's why people made fun of Alan Godfrey. That's why he got made fun of. Of course, as we all know now, there's absolute evidence that shows that this phenomenon is real, right? There's absolute evidence that shows it, as we all know. I don't need to get into that. But he was ridiculed because of an experience that he had with this craft. Obviously, something happened to him. He had missing time. How did the cows show up there right next to him when they weren't there before? There was a lot of strange things that happened here. But you could explain it by this has to be the phenomenon that's responsible. This presence here, this alien, extraterrestrial, non-human intelligence, whatever you want to call it. That's what was responsible. You're going to tell me that the Ministry of Defense was not interested in when they heard this? Does this not raise an eyebrow for the Ministry of Defense? Does it not cause them cause for concern? You better believe it does. You better believe it gives them cause for alarm. There's no doubt about it, because who knows what these beings are up to and what their plans are ultimately. Most certainly, the Ministry of Defense, all of these countries, all of the countries in the Five Eyes Alliance and other countries throughout the world have to be concerned about this for decades, and they're talking about it secretly without the public. They don't want the public to know that they are concerned about it. But the Ministry of Defense, in that recent comment that was just provided to the Liberation Times, that's a lie, because there's no way that they would pretend that this doesn't mean something, that this does not mean that there's some sort of a reason to be concerned, because there is a reason to be concerned when things like that happen. This would most certainly make people in any sort of defense department in any country concerned, and they have to be thinking about this behind the scenes. They just don't want to talk about it publicly because they probably don't understand it completely yet. As far as I'm concerned, it's extraterrestrial. I think these things are coming from other planets. I think that's what they are. Then they came here from other planets. Whatever this presence, the phenomenon that's here, I don't think it's crypto-terrestrial. I don't think they're coming from other dimensions. I think they are able to possibly, access other dimensions but themselves somehow, but I think that they're coming from other planets. I think that's what we're going to learn at some point in the future. I can't prove that, but that's what I think is happening. But the Ministry of Defense, I can tell you folks right now, they're lying, just like the Pentagon has been lying. They're just like all these countries have been lying all throughout the years. Like in the Virginia case, Brazil from 1996. Apparently, the Americans got involved there to get they're the ones who ultimately took the alien bodies out of there, according to reports, according to research by people like James Fox, the documentary filmmaker. So they're all in cahoots together, these little secret groups, these little majestic 12s, right? There's the big majestic 12 that's part of the Pentagon, right? Which is comprised of some people within the Pentagon as well as private defense contractors, and they're working with little groups from these other countries, these mini majestic 12s. And the Ministry of Defense within it has some mini majestic 12. You better believe it, because they have to be concerned and these stories are from almost 50 years ago, so they have to be concerned about it. When they say that they never saw it, it could have been we don't believe that there's any sort of issue here. How could you not believe that there might not be some issue here? How could that possibly be? How inept and dumb would that be if you're going to really make that statement? Because for one thing, we all know now, right? We all know now. Does the Ministry of Defense and the Pentagon, again, are they not aware? I've made them aware. They should be aware. There's most certainly something here, and we could prove it. So the Ministry of Defense is lying to everyone's face, just like they've always been doing for decade after decade after decade, and they're still doing it. It's 2024, and they're still lying. Ministry of Defense, you're a bunch of liars about this. You know, you've been studying this, and you are concerned about UAP. You are concerned about UAP and the pilots that are in them. That's what. There's no doubt in my mind. We all know it. Anyway, I'll leave links to all these articles. There's a lot more to the Godfrey article. Of course, he later on he got hypnotized and he remembered little alien beings, and there was one being in there that was examining him that had a beard and stuff. And then actually he got threatened. You know what? Here's another thing. He got threatened. Here, let me get a little bit. Let me go a little bit further into this story here. The young policeman then encountered. Wait, hold on. Several weeks after Godfrey's account had leaked to the newspapers and became an international news story, he was called into his inspector's office. There sat a man in a dark suit and tie who introduced himself as the man from the ministry. Man from the ministry, okay? Ministry of Defense, right? That's what he's talking about. Man from the ministry. A man from the Ministry of Defense had met with Alan Godfrey, okay? He had with him a file containing Godfrey's drawing of the strange craft. Godfrey wasn't allowed to see the rest of the file, but assumed it also contained his account of the evening's events, plus his report to the mysterious death of Zygmunt Adamski. The man told Godfrey that he was to swear on the Official Secrets Act that he would not talk to anyone about what he had seen. Godfrey reluctantly agreed. So this guy who said he was a man from the ministry had showed up and told him to keep quiet and made him swear on the Official Secrets Act. Hey, don't talk about this anymore. The young policeman then encountered the man on several occasions over the next few days. It was clear he was being followed. Eventually, Godfrey confronted the man in his local pub, telling him to clear off. The man disappeared and was never seen again. There's more to this article. I'll leave the link for it. But there you go. He was approached by someone who was only referred to as a man from the Ministry of Defense, folks, from the Ministry of Defense, went to Alan Godfrey and told him to shut up. Just like there was military people that met with Ricky Sorrells in Stephenville, Texas in 2008. He was the one who saw that giant craft hovering over the woods near his home. They told him to shut up. They always do that. They always want to. They don't want to talk about it. And then when they're asked directly about it, we're not interested in it. Oh no, we're not interested in it. They're keeping it a secret from us, folks. Still, even despite the fact, all the evidence that we have now, all the evidence over the years that aerial school, the Turkey UFOs, the Vegas stuff, the mummies from Peru now. There's just so much out there, right? So the whistleblowers, David Grush, all the stuff, Lou Elizondo, the leaked Pentagon videos. There's just so much, and yet they're still like blatantly lying about it, blatantly lying. And then you look about the Calvine case, which I've talked about a number of times on this show. Those two young cooks at a hotel and working at a hotel in Pitlochry, they're scared to death by two guys apparently from the Ministry of Defense, scared the hell out of them. And nobody knows who. Researchers are trying to locate these guys, like Dr. David Clark, and they still don't know. They can't find them. They want to get more information. Apparently these two young cooks went out after work one night, and they in the Scottish Highlands, and they see this giant craft just hovering in the sky, right, and a Harrier jet flying around in the background. And then they took a few pictures of the thing. The thing goes shooting up into the sky. They can't believe it. They meet with the newspaper. There's gonna be a big newspaper article about it and all this stuff, right? And guess what? Then two guys apparently from the MOD show up and take them for a ride, and they come back and they're all rattled and they never say anything about it. And in the end, their lives fall apart. The news article gets buried because the newspaper's told that it was a hoax. Nobody hears from those guys. The researchers cannot find them right now. And there's something I wanted to point out. Last time there was on the back of this picture that Dr. David Clark had discovered in recent years. There was a picture. He actually got one of the actual photographs, of course, as we talked about, of that Calvine UFO. And on the back of that picture, there was a name was written, Kevin Russell. Now, one of there was another picture of a person that was taken apparently back in the early 90s or the late 80s or something, of a person who was supposed to be this Kevin Russell, and that person was finally tracked down. I've shown this picture on the show a number of times. I was actually one of the associates to Dr. David Clark, who has helped him do the research. Matthew Ilsley had actually let me know today that in this article it was actually mentioned that this guy was they finally found that guy, the guy in the picture I'm showing right now on the screen. They found that guy, but guess what? He's not the Kevin Russell they're looking for. He actually worked at a different hotel, and that's it says that they didn't find him. It says the closest, in fact, in this recent article, it says here the closest we got was a Kevin Russell who, according to the electoral roll, was working as a hotel kitchen porter half a mile away at the time, but when approached, denied all knowledge of the picture. So that Kevin Russell in the picture that has been shown before a number of times in different articles, that guy has no interest. That's not him. It's not. He didn't know anything about this story. He's not interested in UFOs, and that's not the same Kevin Russell whose name is on the back of that picture. And now another possibility has been talked about recently. When I did my last podcast about this, one of my subscribers had commented that maybe Kevin and Russell are actually two first names, and I have passed that information on to Matthew Ilsley, and they're going to consider that in their as they continue their investigation. I think there could be a small chance of that. There maybe who knows, when you think it through, right, there could have been a chance that whoever the two guys, the two chefs, that maybe one of their names, the first name of one of them was Kevin, and maybe the first name of the other person was Russell, and maybe that's why it says Kevin Russell, and instead of being one person, it's actually the two first names. It's a possibility. Who knows? But they're going to keep that in mind as they continue the investigation to find those two chefs who were there that day in the Scottish Highlands and took that picture of the Calvine UFO incident. But again, the reason I'm bringing this up, the main reason I'm bringing this up today again, is because it's another instance in 1990 where apparently people from the Ministry of Defense showed up and scared two people into keeping quiet about what they saw. And when I look at that Calvine UFO picture, I don't see some top secret military project. I see something probably from another world, especially considering the fact that according to the description of how it operated, it was floating there with absolutely no sound, and then it shot straight up in the air without no sound. That's not something that sounds like it could have been made by human hands to me. That sounds like it was something made by an intelligence that's a lot more smarter than we are, than the human race. So that's why the Ministry of Defense is most certainly concerned. So when they say they're not, that means they're lying. When the Ministry of Defense tells you that they're not interested and there's nothing to be worried, they have no interest in the UAP, they're lying. They're lying to you. I just want to make that clear. And we know that there's something here. We know that they have to know about this. And we have evidence now that shows conclusively, guaranteed, absolute proof that there's some sort of a something to this phenomenon. There's no wiggling out of the evidence anymore. There's no stories about raccoons or shadows or anything like that going to work anymore, because we have the evidence now, right? So when they tell you these things, they're lying. Just keep that in mind. Now, one other thing I want to talk about today is this. I came across a story here in Mashable.com. And it says, the headline reads, "Aliens haven't contacted us. Scientists found a compelling reason why." Now, I don't know who these quote scientists end quote are, or how they're coming to this conclusion, or if they're not paying attention. Like, I have to wonder, scientists that are saying they're telling us aliens. There's no evidence. They're saying there's no evidence. They're not considering any of the evidence that we already have. They're pretending that we never been contacted by aliens. There's no such thing. We're going to be waiting forever, and we might actually be alone in the universe, in this galaxy. There might not be any other intelligent life in this galaxy. That's pretty much the narrative that some scientists are actually operating under. It's insane to me, especially considering all the evidence that we have, especially considering the fact that you have people in Congress, in the United States Congress, trying to push for UFO disclosure transparency legislation for the last few years. Despite all of these things that have been going on, they're still pretending like there's nothing out there. We have no evidence whatsoever, even though, as everyone knows, there's been evidence that's been presented on this topic from all different corners of this from the UFO community. I mean, for decades now. I mean, and now we actually have real solid evidence they're never gonna be able to debunk, that shows that there's something here. And I think that they're probably extraterrestrial, probably from another planet. But this group here, some scientists that are part of this article, that are mentioned in this article, they're acting like there's absolutely nothing. And I just want to go through a little bit of it. It says here, the universe may teem with tiny alien microbes. After all, scientists suspect such primitive organisms could even dwell nearby on other worlds in our very solar systems. in briny oceans beneath shells of ice. We can't be sure, of course. Microbes can't beam us any messages, though we have plans to look for them. But scientists have been getting a clearer picture of why no far-off intelligent civilizations among the trillions and trillions of planets in the universe have called us, or why we haven't picked up even a hint of their existence. This is fiction. This is a fictional story that's written using comments from alleged scientists. This is fiction. This is absolute fiction. They're acting like all this stuff that people have been talking about doesn't count for some reason. It doesn't count. It doesn't count. None of the evidence that's been presented so far, it doesn't count. The Ariel school incident, for instance, that doesn't make them stop and wonder. All the investigations into alien abductions, all the things that have been taken out, the implants that have been taken out for people, the cattle mutilation phenomena. And now we have absolute evidence that shows it, but yet there's some scientists out there who are running around with this idea that that we never even came close. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's like we're being told, we're being gaslighted by some scientists in the world. That's what's happening with this article. This is fiction. This is fiction. It's propaganda. A compelling new idea published in the journal Scientific Reports shows how challenging it would be for a planet to gradually evolve intelligent, communicating life. Such a world, they argue, would need both oceans and continents, and the surface must be in geologic motion, which we call plate tectonics, for at least some 500 million years. When other factors are considered, such as the fraction of hospitable planets that host any life at all and how long a signal-emitting civilization might last, the possibility of many active communicating civilizations in space looks implausible. They're talking about this being implausible, despite the fact that there's evidence that shows that there's something here that's not human, that's among us right now. There's a presence here. Don't make no mistake about that. There's a presence here. It's proven now, right? There's a presence here, but these scientists are going through life with blinders on. Anyway, continuing, it says, it's like winning the lottery. Taras Gura, a geophysicist at the research university ETH Zurich in Switzerland and an author of the study, told Mashable. It can be so rare that we don't have much of a chance to be contacted, added Gura, who co-authored the study with Robert Stern, a geoscientist at the University of Texas at Dallas. Obviously, these people who are doing this, right? They're making these statements. They must be deliberately avoiding the other evidence out there to make statements like this. They must be deliberately doing this for some reason. I don't know why. Estimates of the number of advanced communicating civilizations in our galaxy range widely but are generally high. They all use an elegant, simple formula called the Drake equation to guide the prediction. The Drake equation itself, created by astronomer Frank Drake in 1961, doesn't predict anything but calculates an answer based on several inputs. A recent proposal suggests there should be at least 36 civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. Drake surmised there could be some 10,000 civilizations scattered around our galaxy, which would make for a bustling Star Wars-like realm. The new research estimates, however, are considerably lower. And here's a direct quote from Gura. It can be as low as only 4 out of 10,000 galaxies having one civilization, but having 1 or 2 per galaxy is not impossible, he added. Indeed, the galaxy has at least one, but other galaxies might not be so lucky. Now, for one thing, these people aren't considering the evidence that we have. They just aren't. Then it goes on here. It says it's not unusual for experts to suspect that communicating civilizations are scarce. Pascal Lee, a senior planetary scientist at the SETI Institute. Oh, there we go. See, that explains it. We're talking about the SETI Institute, the cult of SETI, right? They always put their blinders on. They always put their blinders onto this. Pascal Lee, a senior planetary scientist at the SETI Institute, an organization researching the origins and prevalence of life in the universe, thinks the number of intelligent communicating civilizations in our galaxy, which NASA estimates has some 100 to 400 billion stars and many more planets, is around 1. 1. It's not too surprising that we could be alone in our galaxy, Lee, who had no role in the new research, told Mashable. So this guy, he won't be surprised if it turns out that there's nothing else here, even though we have evidence that shows there's obviously something else here, right? There's something here that's not us, right? And probably came from somebody else, someplace else, obviously, right? Like Richard Dolan was stating yesterday, there's no real proof about gray aliens and these praying mantis type aliens in the long past, but there is evidence that they were here since the 1940s, or maybe some within the 20th century and up to now. There's been evidence that they've been here since at least that time, but there's not a lot of evidence out there that shows that they were here the whole time. There could have been other aliens visiting here and checking us out off and on. Who knows, right? But it seems like these gray aliens, along with their praying mantis overlords, have been here I guess at least since 47, right? There's not a lot of proof that shows that they were here earlier than that, but they've been here. It shows that they probably came from another planet. That's what that tells me. That's why I think one of the reasons why it's extraterrestrial and not something else. Now, basically, what we have here, we have some scientists telling us that it's very rare that there could be anything else, and we've never been they're working from a position that it doesn't look like anything's ever tried to contact us. This is fiction. These people are going through life with blinders on their eyes. I'm going to actually just demonstrate what it looks like here to the people who are listening. I just received this from the woman earlier. These are like those eye pads you put over your eyes. I think I'm going to do this right now. Put it over my face. This is how some scientists, like from the SETI Institute, go through life. Like when you show them evidence, this is what they have this on. This is what they look like. Because, I mean, when I do my stuff, right, when I do my show, I usually try to present both sides of an argument, like what they're saying, and then you give a retort, right? They're saying one thing, and then you wait, well, what about all of this stuff, right? They never even go to what we're talking about, because you know why? Because all of their discussions fall apart. All of their assertions completely fall apart under the weight of the evidence. They're going through life like this, folks, with blinders on their eyes. This is how I think Garrett Graff wrote his book. I think he had blinders on his eye when he looked one way where there was evidence that he could have looked at and researched, right? And then when he went to the Pentagon side, he took them off. Then he could have, and then when there was anything else that could have changed the assertions that he was trying to make, he would go like this. Oh, I don't see anything else though. That's what they're doing. There's people out there that are going through life with blinders on their eyes, just like this. That's what they're doing. They're pretending that this isn't real. I can't even see what I'm doing right now. Look, I'm almost knocking the microphone down and everything. So how could you trust people who are going through life with blinders on their eyes, right? They're not addressing some of the stuff that we've been talking about. Not satisfactorily. They just brush it aside, right? Oh, it's just raccoons. What's next? Oh, that's a shadow. What's next? Those kids that must have been a hallucination. Oh, it must have been traveling puppeteers. What's next? That's what's going on here, folks. There's people going through life with blinders on their face, just like what's going on here. I don't know. I'm just trying to make a point here. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what's going on here. And some of these scientists that are mentioned in this article, right, they're going through life with blinders on. They're deliberately not telling us everything that they should be. They're not investigating everything they should be. They're not researching all the different, all the stuff that has been put together on this subject over the years. They're not doing anything with it. They're not even looking at it. They have the blinders onto it. Just like Garrett Graff when he wrote that dumb UFO book last year that was published last year. That was junk. I'm still waiting for my money back. I want my money back from Garrett Graff, because the problem is he wrote this book like this somehow. I don't know how he did it, but that's how he did it. I'm sick of it. These people are liars, and you can't believe any of them. Just like the Ministry of Defense in the UK, lying again. You have the Pentagon still lying, pretending that there's nothing to this. And we have some scientists, not all scientists, but some scientists, like the ones mentioned in this article, acting like there's no evidence whatsoever that aliens have ever tried to reach out to us. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Have you not done any research at all? How stupid are these people? I mean, and obviously they think everybody out there must be stupid or something, that no one's going to notice this. Anyway, I'll leave the link for this trashy article too, and you can see what I'm talking about. It just gets you angry when you look at it. It's just like we're being gaslighted by certain people among us for some reason, who just want to pretend that this presence is not real for some reason. They don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And meanwhile, our the military officials are pretending that they know nothing about it, and none of them think it's a threat. Yeah, you know what? Actually, you know what it could be. Then if that's what you're saying, then that means there's absolutely nothing any military in the world could do. That's what it means. They're just afraid afraid to admit it. They're afraid to admit it. That's what it is. They're afraid to admit it. That's why they don't want to bring it up. Right? They want to study it and reverse engineer the stuff in private, and hopefully get a jump on their enemy nations as time goes on. At some point in the future, maybe they'll figure something out. But meanwhile, they don't want to talk about the reality of the situation. They rather have people like Godfrey go through his whole life and getting ridiculed about what he experienced. Anyway, one more thing I want to talk about here today is the most recent Spotify poll. From the episode a couple days ago. The episode, by the way, was Scott Roeder talks Vegas aliens and UFO community leader reactions to the evidence. I asked this question. It's 38 people responded so far. How would most people react if the Pentagon acknowledges that the Vegas alien case involved real non-human intelligent beings? 4 people, or 10.5%, say other. 8 people, or 21.1%, say mass panic insanity. Another 8 people, or 21.1%, say indifference. And the majority, 18 people, or 47.4%, say desire to learn more. I think that's what it's going to be. I don't think there's going to be mass panic and insanity. I definitely don't think it's going to be indifference. I mean, some people ain't going to really care that much, but I think on the overall, I think there's going to be a great desire to learn more. A great desire to learn more. That's what you're going to get. I do think a lot of people don't want to hear about it. I'm starting to believe that. I do think that there are there's stuff out there now in the public domain. I think some people are just, they see it and they just don't want to think about it right now. People's lives are busy. Some people are going to be indifferent, but I think most people, or they learn about this, when they learn that there is something among us for sure, there's going to be a desire to learn more about it. And that's where our governments come in. They need to start telling the truth. They need to release something. They need to acknowledge it. They need to show us some records, Roswell stuff. I want to see it. I want to see it before I'm gone. I want to see the Roswell stuff. I want to see what they know. I know that they're lying about it. I've done enough research to know this. A lot of people have. I want to know more about Roswell. Too many witnesses. The balloon stuff and all. That's the dummies. Come on. The only dummies are the people who believe that stuff. Believe that story. So come on, let's get this over with already. Come on. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.